Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for being with us today. I would like to welcome you to the opening ceremony of the International Space University Southern Hemisphere Space Studies Program 2019. I am Omar Hatamle, the Program Director. This year marks the 8th year, actually, of this prestigious program, which is conducted in partnerships by the University of South Australia and the International Space University based in Strasbourg, France. More than 250 students have graduated from the Southern Hemisphere Space Studies program to date. And this year, we have confirmed over 45 participants from 13 different countries. We are honored to have with us today the Honorable Stephen Marshall, Premier of South Australia, to open this program with us this afternoon. I would like also to acknowledge Uncle Lewis O'Brien, Anthony Muffet, Acting Head of the Australian Space Agency, Professor David Lloyd, Vice Chancellor and President of the University of South Australia, and Mr. Eric Dahlstrom from the International Space University faculty and Chair of one of the team projects, who will speak on behalf of Juan de Dalmau, the University President, who unfortunately missed his connection in Dubai and wasn't able to be with us this afternoon. So now I would like to introduce the class of 2019. So in the ISU tradition, the representatives will be entering behind the flag of their countries. To begin the procession, we welcome the participants from our host country, Australia. Canada. China. Denmark. France. Germany. India. Italy. Malaysia. United Arab Emirates. And the United States of America. Please join me in welcoming the Southern Hemisphere Space Studies Program Class of 2019. I would now like to introduce Uncle Lewis O'Brien to the stage to perform a welcome to the country, please.
Marabachanga, Ghana, Mina, Nai Wangani, Mani to Bundi Gani Atana, Nai Biriko, Mankalangala, Tandanya, Mianaku, Nature Yungandalia, Nature Yakanandalia, Padni Adlu Wadu. On behalf of the Ghana people, I welcome you all to Ghana country, and I do this ambassador of the Adelaide Plains people. My brothers, my sisters, let's walk together in harmony. I should tell you a little bit about the past of the Ghana people. When I was 10 years of age, my uncle told me the Nukanu, the Nudgeri, the Ghana and the Runga came together for 2 moons. So we ran conference in this country, and the German missionaries wrote down the word for conference, Bamba Bambalya. They came to us for education. We taught them how to think twice. We also have a word for dark spots in the Milky Way, which was written in 1840, Urakawi. So we did look at the heavens in the early days, so I think far ahead of the rest if you look at the dictionary. And so we're interested in those things in outer space, but when we ran the conference we found a very interesting factor that every language group in this country and this world has knowledge that no one else possesses. And we shared knowledge with 250 nations, and I'll give you a couple of examples. The Burong people were stargazers. They knew more about the stars than any other group in the country. They taught us about the stars, and now you can go to Mawson Lake and see Ghana by the stars, because we learned from them. So we shared knowledge, and that's our culture lasts 50,000 years. Thank you.
Thank you, Uncle Lewis. I would now like to welcome the Honourable Stephen Marshall to deliver an address.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. First of all, can I say it's absolutely fantastic to have so many international students coming to South Australia, and I hope that you're having a nice warm welcome to South Australia. If it's not warm enough for you today, it will be warmer tomorrow and then warmer again on Wednesday. Can I acknowledge some of our very special guests who are with us today? Anthony Murfitt, who is the acting head of the Australian Space Agency, Professor David Lloyd, who is of course the Vice-Chancellor and President of the University of South Australia. Can I acknowledge Eric Dahlstrom, who is representing Wanda Dalmo. That's probably not at all how to pronounce it, but anyway, he's representing himself as well here today from the ISU. Dr. Omar Hatamli, the Program Director in his third and he says final year as the Program Director here at the Southern Hemisphere Space Studies Program. Dr. Adi James, the Program's Co-Director, and of course Anne Ferguson, who's the Mayor of Mount Barker District Council, and she's very important because she allows us to set off balloons in her area. And can I also acknowledge Tanya Munro, who's on the Premier's Economic Advisory Council. Can I thank Uncle Lewis O'Brien for his welcome to country, and he's quite right. The Indigenous people of Australia have been here for more than 50,000 years, and they've been looking up at the stars, and that's why I was so delighted when the new design for the Australian Space Agency referenced those Indigenous elements. So I think that's absolutely fantastic. And I too would like to acknowledge that we're meeting today on the traditional lands of the Ghana people and that we respect their spiritual relationship with this incredible country. It is an absolute pleasure and a privilege for me to be able to join you today for the official opening of the Southern Hemisphere Space Studies Program. It's now been running for quite some time, but I understand this is one of the largest cohorts we've had in the history of this, and I suppose there's no better place to host this Space Studies Program than right here in Adelaide at the moment, because we've had some pretty exciting news lately. I don't know whether you've heard this, but for those of you who haven't heard, we're very grateful because the Prime Minister, Scott Morrison, ScoMo as he likes to call himself, dropped in December, and he announced that Adelaide would be the host of the National Space Agency, and we're very grateful for that announcement. We think it's a very logical place to put the space agency for our country. We've been waiting for a very long time to have a National Space Agency for Australia. It's coming, and it's going to be based here in Adelaide and will be open around the middle of the year, just up the other end of North Terrace at Lot 14. And I think that this is really going to be fantastic for our country and for our state, and there's plenty of people that we need to thank for that. But several of them are here today, and I would like to publicly acknowledge their contribution. In particular, I'd like to acknowledge Michael Davis, who's with us here today, who was the man with the huge ambition to bring the IAC to Adelaide in 2017, September, October 2017. So congratulations to you, sir, for bringing that to Adelaide, but also for the work that you've done for a long period of time to advocate for an Australian space agency. To Nicola Sassanelli, to Andy Keogh and Richard Price, who both had the role as head of Defence SA, which made sure that we had a very strong space program here in South Australia. So coming so soon after this announcement, we are absolutely delighted to have the Southern Hemisphere Space Studies program in South Australia. We believe that this will open great pathways for participants on the program into this very exciting sector of our economy. And for those of you from Australia, and in particular those of you from South Australia, of course you're going to be excited. This is just one of the most exciting global sectors at the moment. I'm told that it currently turns over around $430 billion. And we haven't had much of a slice of that action in the past, and we certainly want to have some of it in the future. But most importantly, when we look at the size that is projected to be $1.3 trillion by 2030, it just shows the enormous opportunity. And of course, as a sector which is growing, one of the critical constraints to the sector is having the right professional, trained people to go into the sector, and I think that's what is so wonderful about this program. And I want to congratulate each and every one of you who has been selected to participate on this program, and I hope that it is hugely beneficial to each and every one of you. The state government is sponsoring 5 individuals to come onto this program, and I had the great opportunity to catch up with them on a blistering afternoon last Friday and hear about their aspirations for their careers in the space sector. And it's fair to say they are representing so many dozens, if not hundreds of young people at universities here in South Australia who really are buoyed and inspired and motivated by the announcement of the Australian Space Agency. But congratulations to each one of those 5 who will be participating on that program. We also in the state government have 5 additional scholarships to the value of $20,000 per winner, which gives them the opportunity to study overseas, and that will be opened up very soon. In fact, you can go to the website now and take a look. Applications will open in May, so you've got a little bit of time to think about putting in your application. That money comes out of our $4 million Space Innovation Fund here in South Australia. We're also excited this year because we're going to have another visit from the UAE Space Agency. A delegation will be coming down to Hamilton Secondary School to have a look at the wonderful space program that we offer there. But the thing that I'm most excited about at the moment is another announcement to be made by the federal government in the coming weeks, because they're going to be making a decision on the next round of cooperative research centres in Australia. And can I just again congratulate the University of South Australia for their leadership in this area. They, together with the Nova Group, have put together a very competitive and compelling bid to establish what is hopefully to be named the SmartSat CRC for Australia. And this will be a great new facility to be based here in South Australia, working with industry and the university and government around nanosat and smartsat capabilities. Certainly an area that we already have some expertise in South Australia, but we're looking to build that into the future. Lots more. One of the great areas of focus for the new government is around business startup and incubation and acceleration and entrepreneurship. We're very pleased in South Australia that in the last 18 months we've already had 6 new space-related companies start in South Australia. I think now with this announcement we're going to see many, many more of those. And I think that's why it is so important that we have programs like this that will be able to make sure that we have people with the right expertise to look at that fantastic opportunity. I've had a look at the program. It looks mouth-watering. A live-in program. How luxurious is that? Didn't do it like that when I was at uni, but it looks absolutely fantastic. A range of incredibly high calibre speakers coming to share their knowledge and their expertise and their passion for this industry with the participants. I know that there are going to be a series of public lectures, so even people like myself can come along and learn about what is going on, field trips, panel discussions, and I think what is going to be a fantastic time. I know for the 5 participants that the state government has provided scholarships for, I've already told them that they've got to come and give me a full report after the event. So I don't know who's in charge of organising that, Eamon or Tian or Kyle or Max or somebody is going to get in touch with me and tell me what has gone on. So you 5 have got to take very serious notes, and I'll be testing you on it, and I might even get Omar to give me a couple of questions so that I can slot in and find it. Now, what happened on the second Tuesday at 9:15 in the morning? Anyway, these are some of the things that those 5 participants have got to look forward to, and I'm sure each and every one of you have got a special part of the program that you are looking forward to. So now it is, without further ado, it is my great pleasure to declare open the Southern Hemisphere Space Studies Program for 2019. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Premier. And next, I would like to welcome Mr. Anthony Murfitt, the Acting Head of the Australian Space Agency, to give a talk.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. It's a real pleasure to be here and see an assembled crowd that's big advocates of space. And I don't think there's anyone more of an advocate for space in Australia at the moment than the Premier here. So I think we're all extremely lucky to hear from the Premier talk about what we can achieve with space, not only in South Australia, but also for Australia. Before I go too much further, I also want to acknowledge the traditional lands on which we stand for the Kaurna people. We pay our respect to their elders, past, present and emerging. So moving on to the Southern Hemisphere Space Studies Program, and I can't say how much more of an exciting time it is to have a program like this in Australia. And as I was pulling together my notes, I was just thinking about the last 6 months, and that's not just because the Space Agency's been up and running and we've been pretty much running ever since, but it's just to look at some of the space achievements that have been achieved in that period of time. Not here just in Australia, this is around the globe, and one of the things that's beautiful about space and this particular program is the power for space to convene and bring people together across the globe. But if I just run through some of those exciting areas, we had the InSight mission landing on Mars. We had JAXA from Japan instrumental in landing on an asteroid and collecting dust. We've had China, who's landed on the far side of the moon. We've had Voyager 2 has gone into interstellar space. So that's 120 times the distance between the Sun and the Earth. And importantly, because I always throw in an Australia fact, Australia's dish at parks, and if you haven't seen the dish and it's not part of the curriculum and on the ISU, we'll have to make sure it is the only telescope in the world that can actually communicate with Voyager. So just thinking about where the role that Australia plays in space, if you look at Voyager 2, launched in the 70s, Australia has the only dish that can listen to that instrument. Other areas that we're having a look at and around the world is that slipping in this massive transformation that we're seeing. It is, we're going and now seeing Virgin Galactic. It hit 80 kilometres. So I know there's a debate about whether space is 180 kilometres, and I hope you debate that through your course. But again, these are now commercial companies that are making significant contributions into what is space. And importantly, closer to home, Rocket Labs in New Zealand. Now, I know they're our colleagues across the lake, but importantly, they've now had 2 successful launches late last year. And importantly as well, there were 2 small CubeSats that are on one of those launches, which meets Fleet Technologies that is located here in South Australia, has space infrastructure in space. So if we pause and think about what was in the 60s and what was in the 70s, and then if we now move forward and think about where we are now and seeing this rapid transformation of the space sector, and businesses, small, medium and large, can really participate. And then excitedly as part of that, that's why one of the reasons that the Space Agency has been up and running, to really grab hold of that opportunity. The Premier talked about a forecast for it to grow to around $1.4 trillion in size. Australia has about 0.8% of that market at the moment, which sits around $350 billion. But with the agency and with industry behind us, we can really make a future, which is where I give a good segue to having courses like this today, where we bring together a symbol of people where we can learn about space, because it really is about the workforce of the future. If we really want to have an impact in the future, we need to understand the environment, understand the opportunities, and courses like this allow for that to happen. But moving quickly just onto the Australian Space Agency, who we are and what we do. So our purpose is to grow and transform a globally respected space agency that lifts the broader economy and inspires Australians, and underpinned importantly by strong national and international engagement. So again, coming back to this course, we're bringing together the international community. As Australia forges on its path, it will look to partners around the world about how we can leverage our capability and work together to explore the great unknown. Anyway, I'm going to just touch a little bit on some of the areas where we have some great capabilities and opportunities, but I will leave much of it to my boss, Megan Clark, because she's going to come back and address you on the 31st of January to talk about those opportunities. But just to give a bit of a taste. So where do our competitive advantages lie? Well, I've touched on some of it, but our great location in the Southern Hemisphere provides some unique capabilities, and I've spoken about in the instance of Voyager, and where we've got the one dish that can now talk with that spacecraft. But not only do we have that, we've got other things where we have great capability in the processing of satellite data. So as we look at opportunities around how do we manage bushfire, how do we provide further data to farmers, how do we analyse our land, our research scientists have developed great capabilities to harness and pull that data together. As an example, with the Landsat program, our scientists have developed something called a data cube that puts 30 years of Landsat data together, and we can actually have a look at Australia and identify where water has flown for the last 30 years. And so I usually quip that if water hasn't been there for 30 years, it's pretty unlikely it's going to be there for the next 30 years. But what it allows, it provides a capability for not only for farmers, but for mining and various other sectors where we can look and use that data and impact on the broader economy. The other areas that we can do, we can look around space situational awareness, but importantly, we also need to look forward. So the areas we're thinking about is, what are we going to do with quantum technologies? What are we going to do with new rocket propulsion systems? And importantly, what's going to happen in other fields beyond just the scientists? What are we going to do around things like space law? Because when we operate in space, another important thing that we need to think about is the regulatory environment and the treaties that we have. And as we look to grow a sector, a big mandate from the agency is to ensure we're globally respected and meet the international norms. So moving on, just to wrap this up, just to talk a little bit about our international activities. So as I've mentioned in our purpose, a key part of our mission is around international and national partnerships. As we've gone on that particular journey, we've already forged MOUs with countries such as France, the UK and Canada. We've held initial bilateral conversations with the US in a civil US space dialogue, and importantly, we're having conversations with the European Space Agency. Internationally, we've also attended conferences such as the IAC that was held in Bremen recently, and over the coming year we'll be going to other events, whether it be again in Washington for IAC or Colorado Springs, where again underpinning the importance of engaging with our partners and looking at opportunities. And one of the reasons that we do that is about identifying where there are opportunities for our businesses to work with partners overseas. And one of the other areas we're doing as part of the engagement is also developing an international space initiative, which will be a program of around $15 million, and it is driven to support Australia to engage with international counterparts so we can grow our space industry. So in conclusion, it is great to see such an assembly of great nations coming together to talk about space. It couldn't be a more exciting time if we reflect about the missions that are happening, the fact that we have a space agency that has been established, but importantly, as you come together, thinking about the future, how you can understand and how you can nurture not only yourselves, but the community around you, so that we can encourage and invest in STEM and in the children, so that we can have a workforce around the world to have a world-class space industry. So thank you, welcome, enjoy the course, get out and enjoy Adelaide. I hear the Tour Down Under is on at the moment as well, so I hope you get to see a little bit of that if you like cycling. I do encourage it, but again, thank you very much and all the best.
Thank you, Anthony. Please welcome Professor David Lloyd, Vice Chancellor and President of the University of South Australia.
Thank you, Omar. Uncle Lewis, thank you for your welcome to country. Premier, thank you for opening the programme. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being here with us today. I have great pleasure in formally welcoming you to the 8th Southern Hemisphere Space Studies programme hosted by the University of South Australia. And it is fitting that we're hosting and holding the ceremony on Garna land, launching new frontiers and exploration and opportunities from the land of one of the world's oldest cultures. I give a warm welcome to everyone taking part in this year's programme and also to those who have travelled from far to reach us here in South Australia. A particular word of thanks goes to the sponsors that Omar mentioned. We appreciate your collaboration and support. The truly global reach of this programme is highlighted by the fact that 80% of this year's participants' class are international. We have participants from Australia, China, Canada, Denmark, France, Germany, India, Italy, Malaysia, the UAE and the United States. And I do hope that you enjoy the experience of the Summer Space Programme. Our division of IT, Engineering and the Environment has enjoyed a very close working relationship with the International Space University in the creation and evolution of this Space Studies Programme. We have been working with the Federal Government Australian Space Research Programme since its inception to deliver the Southern Hemisphere Space Studies Programme. And this enabled us to collaborate with the International Space University to create a successful professional development programme which is now self-sustaining. In fact, UniSA is the only university in the world to have a continuing partnership with the ISU to conduct an annual programme. Our relationship with the ISU dates right back to the early 90s when we became an affiliate of the ISU through the action of Professor Mike Miller, who was then the head of our Institute for Telecommunications Research. And it's kind of fitting that the ITR is also the producer of one of South Australia's great successes in space industry, Myriota Technologies, which came out of our ITR activities. Now, since the relationship began, we've had staff and student exchanges, we've had the 9-week Space Studies programme, which started in 2004 here in Adelaide, and we've hosted a module of the Executive MBA ISU programme in 2011, and now the Space Studies programme, which has been held here for the last 8 years. We also offer industry-leading academic programmes in engineering, in IT and science, and a specialised joint UniSA ISU graduate cert in space studies, which is directly linked to the Space Studies programme. In the course of this year's programme, you will be undertaking 2 team projects, the Southern Hemisphere Priorities for Space in 2030, but also a more interesting programme, A Day in the World Without Space, when we'll challenge our local media and politicians to not mention the word space once in the course of 24 hours. Which I don't think would be possible. I watched First Man last night, and of course the only one thing we haven't referenced is the fact that in 2019, of course, is the 50th anniversary of the moon landing. And I was just told today that Rising Sun Pictures, who worked on Gravity, another one of those wonderful space movies, are working on a very significant motion picture which actually catalogues the moon landing for Disney. UniSA is at the forefront of the technology in space exploration and space communication in Australia, and we bring our scientists and engineers to bear on the major problems and challenges of that industry. We look forward to being engaged with you on this topic, And over the next 5 weeks, as participants, you'll gain insights and share experiences through a range of lectures, workshops and presentations. There'll be several free evening events in which the public will be invited to participate in the programme as well. We hope that during your time with us, your study and activity will be rewarding and exciting. And on behalf of UniSA, I wish you all the very best for the programme. Please join me now in welcoming Dr. Eric Dahlstrom, a member of the ISU faculty and the team project chair at the Southern Hemisphere Space Studies Programme. Eric is an astronomer and space engineer who worked on the design of the International Space Station for NASA. He's participated in more than 20 ISU programs over the last 30 years. He's worked with the ISU founders during the creation of ISU. He's from the United States. He currently lives in New Zealand, developing entrepreneurial space ecosystems around the world. I'm sure we'll be seeing more of Eric here in South Australia as the epicenter of Australia's space industry, giving us the opportunity to tap into that $400 billion global space industry, supporting innovation, defence, telecoms, and the environment and high-tech jobs. The future of our state is looking very great indeed. Please join me in welcoming Eric Dahlstrom.
Thank you very much. Yes, unfortunately, Juan Tadalmo, our new ISU president, was delayed and was not able to attend. I really like to thank our hosts for welcoming us so well and providing such a wonderful opportunity for both academic and government support for hosting ISU here. One thing that I'm sorry that I don't have prepared remarks. These are just some comments about the origins of ISU from when I knew the ISU founders 5 years before the start of ISU. We were students together, and and one aspect of we tried to create a program that would follows the 3 I's, the international, interdisciplinary, and intercultural. And over the 30 years, all of these aspects have become more and more important. The original idea of ISU was to train people everything you needed to know to build a space settlement, to move humanity into space, live on the moon, Mars, asteroids, actually, it applies also to any kind of program, international activity around protecting Earth and so on. I happen to have, I don't usually carry this around, but I happen to find the original proposal for ISU, which I was so proud to type up many years ago on a new device called a word processor. Our university was able to afford a word processor, and also the original founding conference. And I'll just read you that ISU goals to identify, assemble, and educate talented students from all participating nations, to initiate lasting international ties between future leaders in academic professions, and to enhance and expand international cooperation in space-related projects. And I think in the past 30 years, this has really been accomplished in many ways. And but the entire goal of ISU was actually to create this network of opportunities, network of alumni and people and contacts and host sites, and so linking sites such as South Australia to the world and providing opportunities there, to create companies, which is happening today. If you're planning on arriving and departing the space station, the traffic rules are written by an ISU alumni company. There were 20 satellites this morning owned by ISU alumni that just mapped Australia. And in fact, the first ISU payload on the space station plant growth experiment just landed 2 hours ago in the Pacific on the SpaceX Dragon, and will be taken back to Strasbourg for DNA testing. And so these kinds of activities are going on now. There's the faculty and alumni network of 4,500 alumni are there for your opportunity to take your ideas and turn them into companies, projects, and perhaps the settlements on the moon and Mars, like we're planning. And also, there's strong personal connections come out of ISU. I met my wife in France and worked together in Spain through ISU programs. Fell in love in Sweden and got married in Austria. And we're the only couple to get married during an SSP. It was an optional student activity. So there's, but actually there's been, we lost count on how many other marriages there were from this, but so that it was just turned out to be an accident that putting together people that have shared interest for this amount of time can form strong bonds, and I think we are moving connecting the world and moving it forward out into space together. So thank you.
Thank you, David and Eric, for your speeches. I would like to thank our program staff, the participants, and our many friends and supporters of the program. This program would not be possible without the support of many groups and organizations. In particular, scholarships are critical components of the graduate education, and we are fortunate to have a number of generous benefactors. We would like to thank, first of all, the program sponsors. I would like to start with the South Australian Space Industry Center, Sir Ross and Sir Keith Smith Fund, the Secure World Foundation, European Space Agency, NASA, China Aerospace Science and Technology Corporation, Chinese Space Foundation, the Indian Space and Research Organization, DLR, Nova Systems, Asia Pacific Satellite Communication Council, Boeing, Dr. Michael Simpson, Cleveland Wildlife Park, and also would like to thank our event sponsors, the South Australian Italian Association and Committee for Italians Abroad, City of Salisbury, Space Industry Association of Australia, and the Amateur Radio Experimental Group. These are a few of the groups that make this program possible. I would also like to acknowledge the program co-director, Dr. Adi James, and his team at the Mason Lake campus for this amazing work that they have done throughout the program here. Well, this concludes the formalities, and today, actually, after this, it's time for the rocket science to begin. It's going to be a challenging, but very, very rewarding experience for all of you guys here. So with this, basically, we conclude the official things. We'd like to invite you to join us for refreshments at the Kerry Packard Civic Gallery located at the top of the stairs. And I would like to ask our distinguished guests and class to come for a picture in front of the stadium, in front of the stage here. Thank you all for joining us this afternoon.